And thanks for joining us and staying with us throughout this coverage, this special coverage of the NDC parliamentary and presidential primaries. The results are now trickling in. There have been some major upsets across the country, major casualties. Lots of people who were hoping to win have lost. Some incumbents are beginning to fall as well. There are new faces emerging too. This is the place to be. This is the final lap where we begin to sift the men from the boys, the winners from the losers. And we are going to be beginning with some of the very interesting constituencies where we're getting results. Tonight, you know, ABF Hussaini has lost. Also, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, former power minister, has also lost. Many, many more losing tonight. Some also picking up wins. In the studio with me, when I first heard that ABF, somebody was saying ABF Hussaini, I was like, but why is the person mentioning Inusaf Hussaini's name? He's not contesting. And then it struck me, no, they're talking about ABF Hussaini. Guess who joins us is Mr. Hussaini, just to pun on the words or the surname. He's comfortably seated and enjoying his life after Parliament, but he's in the studio with us. Hello, Mr. Inusaf Hussaini.
Thank you, Evans. Thank you.
And he's joining us in the studio. Wingsting is with me as usual. Wingsting, very interesting results coming in. But let me go to ABF Hussaini, who has been pouring through their platform. And surprised like all of us.
So you have to go to...
I said, I'm calling him. I knew this would happen. I knew I'll call you Hussaini before we finish. Yes. No, Inusa, so what's your take on the results coming in so far?
Well, so you are not far from confusing the names. The first time I was made a Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the name came as A.B. Inusaf Hussaini, and there was confusion in Parliament. They had said that the mention of the name was intended to be ABA, but it said A.B. Inusaf Hussaini. They had moved my middle names to the first, like the Americans do.
Okay.
You know, and A.B. Hussaini himself several times has had to spend my get fund resources because when they gave my check to him, and he went to the bank, they got claimed.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So that's it. But then, I mean, A.B. Hussaini, the last elections he faced a lot of challenges. I mean, the primaries for his executives, almost all the people were against him. I mean, it was almost like a taboo to be associated with the name ABF Hussaini.
Oh, I see.
Now, people simply had to campaign against ABF Hussaini to be able to win the constituency elections. And so he did not have anybody in the constituency. But again, most of us supported him because you don't want to sacrifice experience.
Yeah.
He's been there for a very long time. He knows the in and out of Parliament. He's a very formidable member of the NDC. In fact, he showed support for the party even when he was a private citizen working, I mean, in the field of journalism. So you wouldn't want to lose such a person, will you? And I mean, people are going to miss him. I mean, you are going to have these proverbs.
He doesn't of course.
Finish a sentence without coupling it with a proverb. Yes. You know, it's unfortunate. But the signs were clearly on the wall. I mean, he had said when I refused to go in 2020, he said, well, Virginia brother, you ought to have told me. I probably would have considered my decision to go along with you.
Okay, so you also was contemplating stepping out completely.
In 2020. Okay.
But you see, you make a point that at a point it became very difficult for him. I am aware, for instance, in 2020, now Felicia Tete gave him a run for his money.
Yes.
Felicia Tete, and this is Felicia Tete in Sanderigu, giving ABF Hussaini a run for his money. I mean, he had to take the benevolence of some of his key colleagues to support him in order to sail through. That should have sent him a signal. If he had considered in 2020 stepping down, then what the elections in 2020 should have given him an indication that it was time for him to move on.
Winston, even it's not about Felicia alone. I mean, it was quite clear that for the first time in the history of Saknaru constituency, MPP won 44 ballot boxes.
Yes.
44. That's never happened. In fact, when we started this whole project, MPP could not even win one ballot box in South America. Felicia Tete, who is a resident, not an indigent, wins 44 seats and gave you a run for her money. You know.
So that clearly is one of those interesting ones. So come back and analyze Dr. Kwabena Donkor's defeat tonight also. A stalwart in Parliament, has been in Parliament for years. Many thought that seat was safe. Tonight, he's falling. Let's go to Adenta constituency, where that race has been intense as well. My colleague, Kweku Asante, is there for us. Kweku, this is a seat where Nana Oye Bampoado was facing off. Some say it was a two-horse race between herself and the incumbent member of Parliament, Ramadan. What's the result? Do we have it yet? Do we know?
Evan, the result has not officially been announced by the Electoral Commission. There were 3 polling booths at this voting center, and they are doing a reconciliation. But the mood here from Adamu Ramadan supporters clearly shows that they believe that they have won. Indeed, the unofficial result we have shows that Adamu Ramadan will edge past Madame Oye Bampoado with a little over 30 votes here. And Madame Oye Bampoado just left the voting center. I tried to speak to her. She wasn't ready. But Mohammed Adamu Ramadan is expected to get within the region of 1,020 votes, while Nana Oye Bampoado is getting around 989. But that official result will be confirmed to us very soon. But what we can tell is that for the first time, the National Democratic Congress is retaining a member of parliament, a parliamentary candidate. Since this constituency was created, the NDC has always changed its parliamentary candidate every other 4 years. The NDC have maintained them for some time, although in the general elections as well, the MPs have also been losing after every first term. So Adamu Ramadan is going to hope that he will be that first member of parliament for Adenta constituency who will become a second-term member of parliament. But the mood here clearly shows that he and his supporters believe they have won. And you could also see from the demeanor of Madame Oye Bampoado, who has just walked out, that she's conceding defeat already. The other third candidate, Madame Linda, has also considered defeat. She has spoken to journalists and said that she believes she's fought a good fight and she's going to call Mohammed Adamu Ramadan anytime from now and congratulate him. So, Evan, the news here is that just what we do not have is official confirmation, what is expected to come in the next minute or so. But Mohammed Adamu Ramadan has been retained by NDC delegates here in the Adenta constituency to lead the party into 2024. Madame Oye Bampoado has been defeated again by Mohammed Adamu Ramadan going into 2024.
Thank you very much. So that's it. And Winston, this is one of those areas that we said the trend going into this may influence the race possibly against Ramadan. It's not turned out to be so. I'll come to you shortly. We can go to Rafiq. Rafiq Salam is in the Upper West region. He has been monitoring that race for us, where the former General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association has been contesting, Titus Beyuo and others. Hello, Rafiq. What can you report?
I can report to you that this is unofficial. The Electoral Commission is here to give the final results on this. But I can report to you that incumbent member of Parliament, Dr. Rashid Hassan Pelku, has retained his position to lead the NDC in the 2024 elections. Dr. Rashid Pelku polled 867 votes against his main contender, Alhaji Fudu Mokhtari, who polled 708 votes. Two lawyers, lawyer Abubakar Mutiu Rahman had 91, and lawyer Wahid Bampuri also had 104. And so the news from the West Central constituency is that international relations expert Dr. Rashid Pelku has retained his seat in the West Central parliamentary NDC race.
Okay, and what's if specifically Dr. Titus Beyuo.
Titus Beyuo.
Yes.
Yeah, we are still to get the results from Lambussie, but from the look of things, the results that are trooping into the capital here indicates that all incumbent MPs in the West Central, in the upper region, have been able to change their seats.
Okay, so if that's the story, and Rafiq will come to you as you get clarity on that. If that's the story, then that means that Dr. Titus Beyuo may have also lost in this race. Let's go to Shama right now, where we understand that there's been a very interesting outcome there. Reporters joining us right now from Shama. What's the story in Shama?
Thank you very much. Shama, the election or the primaries is over, and the Shama delegates have done really well. There were 4 contenders. Number 1 on the ballot sheet or ballot paper was Madam Emilia Atta, who is the former Western Regional Minister. She put 506 votes, and we have lawyer Kofi Sadiq Bedu, who was a new contender. He put 79 votes, and we have former MP Gabriel Kojo Esifi. He put 371 votes, and we have former DCE Eric Kobler. He also put 175 votes. There was 2 rejected ballots. So in all, the EC official chair declared Madam Emilia Atta as the winner. So in 2024, in the Shama constituency, in the name of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, Madam Emilia Atta will be the parliamentary candidate who will face the other political opponents.
Okay, so Emilia Atta, they're winning that particular seat there. Thank you very much from Shama. Let's come back to the studio whilst we're analyzing. Let's stay with Adenta for a while because as we hear, the incumbent there has maintained that seat in Mr. Ramadan. Your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, that's when we're talking about. I told you that he finds himself in a very unique position. He's well-resourced. And so, that was going to work in his favor. I mean, I've told you about his family background. Yesterday when I was having conversations with some leading, members of the NDC, for instance, one of the things they told me also that, he's won the trust of a lot of the other communities within the Adenta constituency. That is an area that has a lot of overpopulation, many of whom are his supporters. And so, like I said this morning, I mean, while the dynamics or the trend suggested that once you're an incumbent member of parliament, you're going to lose in Adenta, it was only a matter of time for us to realize
somebody
to break that, and he's the one who's broken it. It remains to be seen if he can actually win in the main election, but he's a well-resourced person, and so I'm not surprised.
Let's go to Shai Osudoku, and where an interesting contest had ensued. Your good friend, Professor White, was in that race again, attempting to win. From everything we were hearing, again, another elections had come by, and he's lost again. Let's bring in Sabute, who's there for us. Sabute, what can you report?
Yeah, so I can report that for the third time, the results here for the parliamentary elections are the incumbent MP, Linda Obiniwa-Oklu, had 673. Dr. Michael Kwesa White had 516. And David Tete-Asume, who was the former MP, had 19 votes. For the presidential, John Mahama had 1,220. Kojo Bonso had 17. Dr. Dufo had 0. That's the result here. I will go over again for Linda Obiniwa-Oklu had 673 to maintain the seat as the parliamentary candidate for the NDC. Dr. Michael Kwesa White had 516, and David Tete-Asume had 19 votes. So that's the result for the parliamentary elections here. And as I mentioned earlier, John Mahama for presidential had 1,220. Dr. Dufo had 0, and then Kojo Bonso had 17. So that's the result from the Shai Osudoku constituency here. Evans.
Okay, quickly, if we may, go through the parliamentary results again for us, confirming Dr. Kwesa White's defeat once more in this race.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the incumbent MP in Obiniwa had 673. Dr. Michael Kwesa White had 516, and David Tete-Asume had 19. So this made Linda Obiniwa-Oklu as the parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC in this constituency once again. And this is the third time Dr. Kwesa White couldn't make it onto that ballot.
So that's the story there. So no surprises there, I guess.
Well, no surprises. And I actually see this is the fourth time. Of course, this is the third election, but this is the fourth time because in 2015 when he lost to William Oklu, the husband of Linda Oklu, there was a by-election. He contested that election again. At the time, he put about 3,000 in 2015 to Williams 4,000. Now, David Tete-Asume had about 1,000. In 2016, the by-election, he maintained his 3,000. The lady had 5,000. He came back in 2019, got about 260-something votes to the lady's 800, shows up in 2023, and he's lost again. This is 3 times when you look at elections, but 4 times when you look at the number of times that he has gone into a primaries and has lost. This would only send a signal that the people just do not want you to lead them. You may argue that, look, This time around, he's improved. I mean, he's gotten some 500 votes. But really, the situation remains the same. Dr. Michael Kpesa-White falls short in his quest to lead the people of Shai Osudoku. I think they should send a signal to him. He probably may consider doing other things. He may consider national positions or regional positions in the party. But it doesn't look like he's going to be member of parliament.
Kpesa-White is a very good guy. I mean, he's not a professor.
Yeah.
Indeed, his best shot was when he was contesting SS husband. I mean, we thought that he would pull. At that time, he was very popular within the party. Yeah. He was strong. And even in Shai Osudoku, he was very strong. But he failed. Now, so when the man died, and the people decided to support the wife to step in his shoes, we thought Kpesa-White ought not to have contested the by-election.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have maintained his showing if he had simply waited for the woman to step into the shoes of the husband and contested the elections, I mean, unopposed, so that he could come back after the tenure of the first term of the wife. But because he contested the woman, he lost some face with the people. I mean, the people started thinking that he was not sympathetic to the woman and all those things. So he lost votes by reason of that. But he's a very good guy.
And you see, Evans, this is the other point. In the by-election in 2016, after the death of William Oklu, David Asumi, who was the incumbent member of parliament, who had been unseated by this man, said he was not going to contest.
Yeah.
Of course, David Asumi has not been able to come back again. But Honorable makes a point. You, in 2004, wanted to be the NDC's candidate for Tamale Central.
Yes.
You were advised to step down for Professor Wayoseni.
And I did.
You did. Yeah. Eventually, when he crossed carpet, you were brought in a by-election.
Yes.
You won.
And almost everybody supported me.
Good.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to be sympathetic. When the party advises you, do this. Just listen. It would get to your time. In his case, I mean, in the by-election, everybody supported him. Everybody said it was Inus Afuseni's time to become the member of parliament.
I want to go back to my colleague, Rafiq. Rafiq Salam is joining us once more from the Upper West region. Rafiq, you have an update.
Yeah, the update is that Dr. Titus Beyuo has won the Lambussie parliamentary NDC candidature in Lambussie, polled 146 votes against former member of parliament, Eric polled 254. Dr. Panyang also got 35, and there were 4 rejected ballots. So the news from Lambussie is that the former general secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Titus Beyuo, will be the one in the Lambussie constituency in the 2024 general election.
Okay, so that's a good one there for the former General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. Dr. Titus Beyuo wins Lambussie seat with 446 votes. That's good for him. He was one of many, more than a dozen medical doctors who left their professions and went into contest. And so this is this is
definitely good for Titus. I mean, and he made waves when he did that.
Yes.
And so clearly it's good for him. And that's why when he said almost all the incumbents had won their seats in the Upper West region, we were surprised because Lambussie is not occupied by an incumbent MP. But he was right, because Lambussie is not an incumbent, it's not occupied by an NDC member of parliament, and the incumbent is an MPP. Probably he was talking in terms of NDC. And so it's good for Titus Beyuo.
Stay with me. I want to go to the NDC headquarters where we're getting some more results coming in. The EC headquarters. MFR Pao is there for us. MFR Pao, we understand you have some results for us, and it appears that Felix Kwabena Donkor has once again been elected.
Okay, so welcome to the EC headquarters and the strong room. As we stand now, Evans and Winston, we have about 30, it's just changed. There was 29. We have 30 out of 277 constituency results that has come in so far. We can go through the official results that we have here. I know you have a lot of results trickling in from where you are, but from the northern region, I have Savalugu constituency, and John Dramani Mahama had 1,127. We have 1,128 valid votes cast. We have 8 rejected, and I must give you some, clarification that has been given here in the EC strong room. We are told that Dr. Kwabena Donkor's votes have been declared as rejected votes. So that's what we know now. It's not being counted because it's an official communication to the EC that Dr. Kwabena Donkor has withdrawn from the race. So his votes are now rejected votes. So I see that of Gushegu that has also come in, 1,240 for John Dramani Mahama, and the total valid vote cast is 1,248, and the rejected vote is 6. We have that of Upper East, Chiana Paga. We have 1,139 for John Dramani Mahama, 24 for Kojobonsu. We have 1,163 total votes cast. Rejected are 22. And then we have a total vote cast of 1,185. For the Eastern region, we have Asene Manso and Akrosu votes. All put together, John Dramani Mahama, 807. All the way we have Northeast, we have Upper East for Timpani. We have Oti, Karachi East vote. We have the Volta, the Anglo vote, 1,241 for John Dramani Mahama, 6 for Kojobonsu, 1,247, and then rejected is 9. We have Northeast votes for Bunkrugu is also here. The NDC headquarters votes, from what we have here, 54. That's where I'm coming from, the NDC headquarters. 54 for John Dramani Mahama, 0 for Kojobonsu, 0 for Dufour, and that's the 54 total valid votes cast. That's how many votes we had from the NDC headquarters. The Central region have a Futu vote, John Dramani Mahama, 1,128, 2 for Kojobonsu. So valid votes cast is 1,130, 12 rejected votes. So in all, we have 1,142. We have Savannah vote, Salaga South. We have Northern region, Yendi votes also here. Central region, we have Ekunfi votes also here, 869, 4 for Kojobonsu. Then I'll go on to, we have to go down, and we go down a bit for me. From Ekunfi, we go on, the EC official will help me go down so that we can go through the rest of it. We have Menchia North votes for Ashanti region also here. We have Savannah, Sola, Tuna, Kaoba. We have Ahafo, Tano South vote. We have Eastern, Achim, Swedro vote. We have Central region, Upper Dentra East. So as we speak, Evans, 32 out of 277 constituency. That's what we have. So it's still trickling in, and the numbers keep changing as we speak to you. 33 as we speak. But what we have so far for JDM, 33 out of 277. We have 29,394 for John Dramani Mahama. For Kojobonsu, we have 244. Total votes so far for 33 out of 277 constituency is 29,638. And these are live results that we are seeing on the screen here in the strong room of the election EC offices, I should say. So this is what we have now, 33. We have a long way to go, and we've been speaking to Dr. Srebo Kweku, who tells us that you should calculate that you are not leaving the studio until about 10 p.m. So get ready and brace yourself for it, Evans.
Hopefully it will be earlier. But listen, let's go to Pro East, where one of the biggest upsets yet, I mean, apart from Abiel Fuseni, this possibly tops that, is the fall of Dr. Kwabena Donkor. Let's get a confirmation of that. Let's speak to our correspondent there. Daniel Techi is joining us. Hello, Daniel. What can you report? Is this the story that Dr. Kwabena Donkor has fallen?
Evans, it is true Dr. Kwabena Donkor has lost the seat to his contender, Lord Kwabena. The election started exactly 9:30 this morning and ended around 3 o'clock. But according to the guidelines of the NDC, they have to wait until 4 o'clock before they do the sorting out and counting. After counting everything, it ended around 5 that way. Now, these are the results that we gathered from the ground. These are confirmed results. The parliamentary, there were 3 in number. Dr. Kwabena Donkor was number 1 on the ballot paper. Lord Guam was number 2 on the ballot paper. Bryce Yaono was number 3 on the ballot paper. Now, Bryce Yaono, who placed number 3 on the ballot paper, got 66 votes. Right, Fiaono got 66 votes. Emmanuel Kwabena, who is now the presidential candidate-elect, had
the parliamentary. You mean the parliamentary candidate?
Yes, the parliamentary candidate-elect got 474 votes, as against Dr. Kwabena Donkor, who is the incumbent MP, had 371 votes.
Okay.
The total number of votes cast was 916. When you go to the presidential, John Dramani Mahama had 875, as against Kojo Bonsu, who had 27. Fourth ballot was 1, rejected was 14. So when you come to prove it, it is confirmed Dr. Kwabena Donkor has lost the candidature to Lord Boab.
Okay. Thank you very much. And this possibly tops ABF Husseini's defeat.
Clearly. I mean, you can't compare AB's defeat to this one, because AB's defeat was quite. I mean, he was struggling.
People knew it was coming.
Yeah. So this one is a surprise. And
shocked by this?
The most surprise is that he's won decently. I mean, if you add the vote of the third person to Kwabena Donkor, he would still have been beaten by the guy. So clearly, it's a win for the newcomer. I mean, but Kwabena Donkor is very unpredictable. So who knows? Maybe that has reflected in the elections.
Well, he's always like that. I mean, Dr. Kwabena Donkor is one man who's, some have, tagged him as a rebel. He is a very, he's not your usual politician, okay? He's one who believes in his ideas. He thinks that, well, I'm a member of parliament on your party on a party ticket, and so what? I mean, if I feel that this is what I want to do, that's the end of it. I mean, one of those persons who's very blunt in all that he does. Sometimes it doesn't really work in politics. And, there are a lot of conversations about some of the rebels, those who voted against the party's decision, and conversations about how they should be punished. One of the persons whose name came up strongly was Dr. Kwabena Donkor, the fact that he had openly said in discussions with the party that he wasn't going to do that. And, when you do that, for instance, and you saw a group actually petitioned the party that their member of parliament, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, was actually one of those who did not, go according to the party's decision. They said he was one of those who voted for these ministers to be passed as ministers in parliament. And so they wanted the party to sanction him. Now, well, the party didn't take any action from what, I heard. It was obvious, because for people to actually write that about you and submit it to the party, they wrote their names and numbers. It's not as if they said, oh, these are unknown branch executives.
Or consensus.
They wrote their names, party card numbers. It was obvious that, look, and this is his third time as a member of parliament. Well, he's tried. In the scheme of things, Joshua Boahenedu, when he lost his election, told me that, look, he thinks that sometimes in our rural constituencies, after 3 terms, they think it's enough. Come and sit down for the next person to also go. Because for them, they see it as a job. They've given you a job, you've made enough money, come home. Yeah,
he went in there in 2013?
Yes,
was it 2013? Yeah. And he's been there since. Now, you've touched on something we need to explore a bit more. He'd been tagged as a rebel. And he'd been tagged as a rebel even when the party decided to change leadership in parliament. Yeah. I got from the parliamentary platform of the minority people sending me screenshots of him on that platform galvanizing people to say, we will not recognize Atofosing and Co. until we are consulted in the decision that was made. And a lot of people bought into the idea. Some didn't, obviously, the division that. And people thought he was one of those who led it. And then you're right. Another thing I'm looking at tonight is, you remember the issue with the recent appointments that the president made, that the party issued a 3-line whip and said to the MPs, vote against it. Yeah. We saw the number of MPs who voted for it from the NDC. Now, remember what the party general secretary started doing on his page, naming the MPs and praising them. If your name wasn't there, then the assumption was you may have voted for them. I'm looking at how delegates are possibly going to punish those who were presumed or accused of being part. Oh, no, there was no evidence, and still no evidence. Yeah. But these things count in going into the polls. Clearly, Kwabena Donkor is the first known casualty. For him, people came out openly to say it. He's lost now. Now I'm going to begin to look at all those other people who were tagged as having voted with him and others. That's
clearly. I think that you hit the nail right on the head. I think Kwabena Donkor's defeat probably can be explained in terms of what happened in Parliament, especially when the people decided to publicly contravene the directive given by the party in terms of the ministers that Nana Donko Akufo-Addo had nominated for approval. I mean, he openly came out to say that he was not going to abide by the party's directive. He said Katie Hammond had been his friend for a very long time, and there was no way he was going to sacrifice that friendship for the directive of the party. And he didn't hide his position. Yeah. Now, soon after that, his party members in the East constituency wrote a petition to the party to sanction him, and the sanction was quite dire. I mean, even look at Section 46 of the party constitution, it could include expulsion from the party for contravening the directive of the party. And so probably he's been punished for that.
Yeah, I mean, and that clearly for me going forward will be key. And he's not the only person who was tagged, apart from him. And then I added his other challenge was, again, deciding to go against the party wishes when they changed. He was one of those rebels who said they didn't recognize the new crop of leaders. All of these people, will they be punished? And then Asawase comes into play as well. Yeah. Muntaka is fighting for his life there. We're going to watching what's happening at Asawase. Let's see what's happening at Asawase. Can we get Asawase, Nanaya Aljima to join us so we can get a picture of Imagine there as well? This is one of the things we need to be watching going forward. Our delegates going to start punishing these MPs they perceived to have told an anti-party line in Parliament. I mean,
look, you're right. But the thing here is that a lot of the other guys were not open about it. Many of them, were quiet about it. And so the party was, sending, and to be very honest with you, if I'm a member of Parliament, for instance, and you ask me to take a picture of my vote to indicate that I voted according to the party line, I feel like, why? Am I a child? So yes, you've told me I would vote. But if you say, show me that you voted, some may have a problem with it. Some may not, take shots. But as for him, like we're discussing today, he was open about it. Yeah. Okay, so when you go out openly and say, this is what I intend not to do. See, it's the same Kwabena Donkor. When in 2015, he had promised that he was going to solve Dumso, and that if he doesn't solve Dumso, he's going to resign. Prior to the end of the year, he came out to say he had solved Dumso, which was an indication that he was not going to resign. Then the presidency issues a statement and said they've accepted his resignation. He didn't keep quiet. Dr. Kwabena Donkor is on record to have said that sources within the party orchestrated his, resignation and all of that because they thought he had not done it, but he had actually done the job. He's a man who is very blunt. He's a man who is very, he'll tell you that he's a very principled person. When it comes to discussions about the nation, it's not about the party. And so for him, if he thinks something is going to work for the party, for the nation, and may not work for the party, he would go the way of the nation. When you do that in a part of the world where today a lot of things depend on the party, and parties would want to show that they're very ready for elections, you're not going to survive it. Yeah.
Let's go to Abra Asebu, Kramankese. That's where Felix Kwabena is contesting against Nanama Brown Kluche as a prof there. We talked about that earlier. Let's bring in Kojo Nyako, who is there for us. Kojo, what can you report?
Also, what I can report is that the process has been done. Felix Kwabena has won. He won by 850 votes.
Sorry, Kojo, we are struggling to hear you. If you can move away from the crowd so we could hear clearly. I presume you're saying that Felix Kwabena has won again. Okay, we lost him there. We'll get that to you. As you can see, results already been declared in some of the parts of the country. Can we listen into this?
As well as to the delegates who recognize the fact that this was not about just talk, but this was about a track record of work and who is able to deliver.
It's been a while since any member of parliament from your constituency actually won the primaries back to back to back. I think you'll be the first individual to do that in close to 15 years. How does that make you feel, and what is the way forward for Team Zanetor and the NDC?
Well, it's humbling actually, but it's also encouraging. It's a reminder not to just get complacent. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and so this is just a way to ginger us up and keep moving. It sends a signal that we are united and we're ready for 2024.
I mean, in the morning when I interviewed you, I posed a question about your father's presence and what he might have done or undone to your political career. You answered that your father wasn't there the last time.
In 2020.
In 2020.
But his spirit is behind us.
Say again?
But his spirit is behind us.
So you want to believe that your father's spirit is behind you?
Of course.
But he's not here today, but I can see scores of people jubilating at the result. And that shows drinks of your hard work. You agree?
I think it does. I think it does. I think it does. And I'm just so thankful.
Okay, great. So that's the Zanetor Rawlings there. Some sort of a victory speech there. And many thought going into this that because you have David Lamte's daughter in, maybe with a lot of resources from the father's side, she was going to cause a bit of an upset. That obviously didn't happen. She was a distant third.
Well, I think the evidence from Keta would also indicate that sometimes you may have resources, but not necessarily win the election. I don't want to get into family issues, and so I'll leave it at that. It's obvious that Zanetor is a very strong candidate. The reason you would have Nyama Shite moving to Ladadeko Tupon, which he also was unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. Now, the point is that, yes, Rawlings always would work magic. But look, this is the point in elections. When your father has good friends and he passes on, the more loved you become. Okay? And so for Zanetor Rawlings, people who probably may not have campaigned for her while her father was alive, with her father dead now, would feel obliged to help her win an election, because it would go like, oh, if Rawlings were here, he probably would have gone to help the daughter. How about I go there? And she would get the support. I mean, look, if there's one person that, and I heard, for instance, when I was driving here, Benjamin Akakbo and Professor Seydou Alido having conversations about generational, succession plans and all of that. Yeah. You can see this one working. She started in 2015, came back in 2020, and she's going to be back on the ballot paper in 2024. Well, it remains to be seen if she's going to be successful in her bid to lead the constituency again. But the margin of victory tells you of one who is very well loved and admired in her constituency.
So, I mean, definitely Zanetor is very strong on the ground over there. And like you said, in fact, it appears to me that she's gotten more support from the many people across the political divide. I mean, the father is admired across the political divide by people who thought that he contributed a lot to the democratic development of this country, and clearly will support the daughter to continue to represent him and show a face and presence of the Rawlings in our Ghanaian politics. I mean, it would be a shame not so if the daughter of former President Rawlings loses an election. And I think that Zanetor will continue to contest and win those, the Kolekota constituency seat until she decides that she won't go.
Absolutely. And Kolekota, by the way, this is the Adabraka area, Osu area. And for those, I grew up in Adabraka, and they hold Rawlings. There's a school there called St. Joseph, and that's where Rawlings grew up. There's this beans cellar joint that is famed in that community. I used to go there and buy beans and so when I was growing up there. The Rawlings used to come there, would buy Yokogari, and they would buy a lot of the gari. And so that sort of community, they really idolize the name Rawlings. And there's no way, if once you have a Rawlings, in fact, there was a suggestion today that her brother, Kimathi was also there, and maybe subsequently later in the years down the line, may also throw in the hat somewhere else maybe in the voter region. So that's clearly something that had played in their favor. But let's go back to Kodonyako in the constituency in the central region where Felix Kwabena was standing. And you were reporting earlier, where the line didn't help, that he has won again?
Yes, Evans, yes. So Felix has won. He won by 830 votes as against Professor Nanama Brown Kluche, who polled 572. So this time round, the margin is very significant and huge. In 2019, the margin was not up to 50, but now Felix has increased the vote. And in his victory speech, he is sending a note of caution to the MPPs that this time he is going to walk to Professor Nanama Brown Kluche so that they can unify their front and then take the seat back from them. And so that is what he has been saying. So polls have ended, everything is done, and so everything has ended.
Okay, that's good news for Felix. Again, this was expected, and so he's won. I'm looking, so far we have two major casualties, and always in these elections, the incumbents who lose the primaries. That's where the excitement really is. And then, I mean, some of the areas where you have some very prominent people joining the race, you're also looking at that as well. But one of the areas we want to go to, and then many of you joining us were wondering, did Sam George win or did he lose? Let's recap that and get the thoughts of Inusa Fuseni on that. Sam George, yes, won, and won handsomely, actually. 1,036 as against 626 from Mr. Kwete.
Yes, Michael Kwete Tete.
You know. And Inusa, your reaction to that. Considering the fact that the last primary, the margin, the gap was just 7 votes. Yeah. This is emphatic for Sam George, because many thought he was hot going into this.
But Sam George has doing everything right these days. I mean, he's in the news for good reason. He's taking the anti-LGTB fight to another level. I mean, he's throwing punches here and there. I mean, so clearly the people are seeing some dynamism in Sam George, and people who want to see him back in Parliament. I'm not surprised that he won. The first time he was in Parliament, when he beat his contender by 7 votes, people did not really know Sam George. But now he's taken the fight to another level, and I'm sure people are expressing appreciation for how far he's represented the constituency, made the constituency quite prominent in Parliament and in the national politics.
You said, in the morning I was telling you that...
In fact, you said that the Mr. Kwete Tete had lost ground possibly from the last time because he had alienated some of his godfathers, and this may count against him. So yes, this is something you called quite nice.
I mean, and I told you in the morning also that when you see in 2019 the delegates list was about 800. In fact, total valid votes 807. Now you're looking at 1,600. So even from a point of analysis, you would have to be very careful because the votes have increased. And I told you that when Michael Kwete Tete contested as Greater Accra regional chairman of the NDC, which he lost, I believe his involvement cost Adekoka his seat as Greater Accra regional chairman. Adekoka has been a supporter of Michael Tete. Now, the moment you do that, you've gotten, because you go out there to contest him, he loses. Adekoka polls 222. You polled 297. You beat Adekoka, all right, but you all lost to, Ashimo. Now, as I said in the morning, so it wasn't surprising. If Michael Tete had played his cards very well, look, in politics, be consistent. In politics, let people know this is what you want to do. When you are convinced it has not worked, then you say, I want to move on. So don't be flip-flopping, today you are here, tomorrow you're there. And everybody keeps asking the question, so what does this guy really want to do? It's like he just wants to have a position. When it happens like that, it's no longer service that you want, it's just actualization, the position. So I say, I'm regional chairman. So I say, I am member of parliament. When it happens like that, it just may not work for you. And I think that it didn't work for, Michael Tete. At this point in time, he should do a bit of soul searching. He could still, get into good terms with Sam George and reach an agreement on what would happen. Maybe in the next election, he probably may say, I'm not going to contest you. He's still a young guy. And then I'd make sure that I come back. But look, he's his own doing. Some of the decisions in the last year or two have not helped him.
So that's a story there in Ningo-Prampram, and many of you were looking forward to that, one of our key places. In fact, from what I'm hearing, in Asawase, voting is still ongoing. This is pretty strange. I mean, because normally by this time in the primary with a few thousand people, this would have been done already. We're going to get some clarity why that is the case, because almost everywhere else across the country, voting has ended. That's one of the places we're looking forward to. And then the Zanetor Rawlings story. I want us to revisit it slightly because, as we know tonight, Dr. Kwabena Donkor Jr. has lost that particular primary. But the incumbent, that's another casualty. The incumbent also lost. And our thinking here is, considering that the Donkor Jr. and the incumbent are relatives, and the incumbent had drawn a lot of support from Dr. Kwabena Donkor Sr. going into this, to the point where the son then joins, and then, of course, father-son, blood is thicker than water, backs the son. They appear to have whittled down each other's votes there, and then given an advantage to the lady who seemed to have crossed the mark. That always plays out in politics sometimes, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, both Dr. Kwabena Donkor Jr. and Honorable Adumaku were going to pull from the same source.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot discount family association in our politics. Our politics is quite ethnic-based and family-based. So when two people from the same family are contesting elections, they're going to draw their support from almost the same people. And so they invariably split their votes, and the third person walks through. I'm sure, I've not looked at the results yet. I'm sure if we combine the results of
211, 203 initially. I'm told after recounting it goes to 200 for Kwabena Donkor Jr. But I mean, the provisional results are here. It's 211, 200.
So you can't add the two results. You're going to get 400 something.
Yes, and if you add Adumaku's results, 86, and Kwabena Donkor and Adumaku 86, 203, that will take you to 289. I mean, one of them would have won if the two of them come together.
Sure.
But the point you make also, and this is the other thing, and this is my thinking. So sometimes you have a situation where a family member or a close ally knows you're about to lose an election. He may have discussed it with you, but probably would want to salvage the situation. And so he throws himself into it. I'll give you a typical example. Adabomenu, for Hafano Southeast, for instance, the one who unseated Kweku Baladomenu. Yeah. Now, he said that Kweku Baladomenu had become very unpopular. And even though Kweku Baladomenu wanted him to come after him, Kweku Baladomenu wanted Adabomenu to succeed him, Adabomenu felt that that was the right time. He was not going to win.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then he will unseat Kweku Baladomenu because Baladomenu was unwilling to step down at the time. So he threw himself into it and he unseated him. I think that may have happened, but I'm also very convinced that Kwabena Donkor Jr. has been hurt by his father's decision.
So the sins of the father was visited on
the son. They were visited on the son. And I've had a lot of, I've had a lot of conversations about don't punish the son. Don't punish the son. Honorable Mayor have heard it too. Don't punish the son. Look, at a point in time that people were saying, look, this guy's just worried his son. This guy's just worried his son. I think sincerely that the last actions of Dr. Kwabena Donkor Sr. have affected his son.
Yes, that could be so. But again, Evans, we're Ghanaians.
Yeah.
Winston, we're Ghanaians.
Yeah.
Now, two family members are fighting each other to lead a constituency. The delegates will say, no, if we do that, we are going to perpetually divide the family. Let's make both of them losers so that they can go and reconcile themselves.
The delegates could also be saying that this family has cost us a lot of trouble over the last week. Let's vote against
it. Let's vote against it. No, but we need to analyze this a bit more because the fact that Hajia Afra Nasira, nobody gave a dog's chance in this particular race to win that. It's significant. But also, remember the conversation we had yesterday where that possibly Dr. Kwabena Donkor may have done a deal, with his son included. Of course, that didn't pan. Even if it did, the delegates rejected that deal, if indeed in withdrawing that suit from court. There's a lot to chew on there. He's ended, the father's political career is finished.
It's gone.
The son's political career is possibly also gone.
Yes.
If he even thought
because
of going forward.
Adumaku is not going to support Kwabena Donkor Jr.
Again. Just a second, please. There's a lot more coming. I want to quickly cross over now. Quickly, I want to go to Asawase, and then I'll come to hear from the latest parliamentary candidate on the block, Dr. Titus Beyuo, who will join us pretty shortly, the former General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association. But quickly to Asawase, where Nana Yaw-Gyuma is standing by. Hello, Nana Yaw-Gyuma. I understand voting is still ongoing there in Asawase. What's happening?
Exactly. In Asawase constituency, voting is still ongoing. From my checks, about 400 delegates are yet to cast their ballot. And the reason they are ascribing for this is the lateness in start of the election here at Asawase constituency. As I reported earlier, the election itself here started around 11:30 this morning, and the reason is that the materials for the Asawase constituency did not arrive on time. We spoke to the secretary of the NDC in the Ashanti region early this morning, Dr. Mwakohene, and he says that due to the court issues that were being resolved yesterday, there was delay in the dispatch of election materials, and that is what has caused what we are seeing here now. Earlier, they were supposed to bring create two different polling stations here at the Asawase constituency. The two polling stations are here, but we are not seeing the process go as quick as we all expected. So there are still a lot of people in the queue trying to get to the position to cast their ballot. So the Asawase constituency election is still ongoing. There are a lot of security men. They've been beefed up of security men on the ground. A lot more are coming in, and they are ensuring that the place is safe and calm. Now they've moved this whole the space for the election into a shelter, and they've provided enough electricity under this shelter to ensure that the election is run smoothly here in the Asawase constituency. There are still a lot more of these delegates joining those here at the polling station, and so far so good. The process has been smooth.
And if you look at and actually there's a long queue of people. From what I'm seeing on television, still waiting to vote. This is going to go. What's the delegate number in Asawase?
So Asawase has a register of 1,886 delegates on it, and the queue you are seeing now is just one of the two polling stations here. As I said earlier, at my last check, we had 400 delegates yet to vote. I would want my cameraman to pan to the other polling station so that those around, or so that our viewers can also have a feel of the queues we have here. So on my left is another polling station. Behind the barricades are just supporters or delegates who have already cast their ballots. On my left, as you see in your shots, are other delegates who are also in the queue to get their votes cast in the other polling station. So there are still a number of these delegates here on the grounds, about 400 currently on the ground, yet to cast their ballot here in the Asawase constituency.
I say this is going to travel way into the night, but that's one of the areas that we are looking for closely. We'll come to the studio and analyze what we expect may happen in Asawase. That's where Muntaka Mubarak is facing steep competition from a businessman with a lot of resources who's giving him a real run for his money. We'll come to that. But let's bring in Dr. Titus Beyuo, who is now joining us right now. He is the latest parliamentary, he's not a candidate yet. He's a parliamentary candidate elect. Because he has to now go to the process of formalizing that with the Electoral Commission. But he's just won in the Lambussie constituency in the Upper West region. Dr. Titus Beyuo, thanks for your time here on your election headquarters.
Thank you, Evans, for having me. Good evening to your viewers.
And congratulations are definitely in order.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much.
And from what I see here, you won handsomely, 446. Your closest contender, Edward Derry, came in at 224, twice as many votes as that. Give us a sense of what you're feeling now from medical practice and the leadership of the Ghana Medical Association, swinging into politics full time and securing this victory.
It's a humbling experience for me now, and I feel excited about it, but more so that my people did not let me down. I did say when I declared my intentions that I was responding to clarion calls from the constituents, and I played my part of the bargain, and I think
Hello, Dr. Beyuo.
Yes.
Yes.
I was saying that my constituents decided to keep their side of the bargain.
Mm-hmm.
They called on me to come in and contest. I took that decision boldly to quit and then come in, and they kept their side of the bargain. And I'm so grateful to them. As you will notice across the reports that you are getting, it's not so easy to pick an incumbent. And my contender, the closest contender, is the incumbent, I'll put it that way, parliamentary candidate, because he was the sitting MP 2 terms, lost on his 3rd bid, and then this was going to be his 4th bid. But I'm very grateful to the youth of the Lambussie constituency who championed my campaign, leaders, traditional rulers, all other stakeholders that made this possible. I'm really grateful to all of them.
And indeed, this is a major task. The work now begins because you have an incumbent there who's won this consistently over time. The NDC had won it twice, the last 2020, of course. Then the MPP comes in and sweeps it. You want to return to what it used to be in 2012 and 2016. Have you figured out yet how you're going to do that?
It's a Herculean task ahead of us, but I think we are able to do it, or we are up to the task. Reason being that if you analyze closely how we lost the seat to the NPP, it was a clear indication that there were internal problems. Our presidential candidate got over 70% of the vote, and yet we lost the seat. So predominantly, if all factors are in place, the constituency is more inclined towards NDC. And that said, going against an incumbent of having also been government in power, there are several factors that will come up. And I'm sure we will regroup and re-strategize together with the team, together with my colleagues who lost. We have pledged to all unite the party today, and I'm counting on them that we can forge ahead with one voice and a common strategy that would help us regain this seat.
Titus, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us with that reaction. And he isn't right, Winston, because if you look at the trend in that particular constituency, the MPP has only won it twice, in 2008 and then last elections. Yeah. And even when they won it, the margins have been tight, very, very close. Other than that, other than those 2 elections, NDC have always swept that place, and when they're winning, they win handsomely. And he's right. John Mahama was overwhelmingly popular there with 70% of the votes in the last elections. But if you look at the parliamentary races, it was very close. 9,000 votes for the MPP guy, 8,000 votes for the NDC guy. The difference there is pretty down to a few hundreds of votes. So when he says, I can turn this around, the trend backs that. The trend says, if you get your act right, the NDC can retain the seat, because this is what they do in Lambussie.
And you see he gets over 60% of the votes. Clearly, it gives you an indication that he's well-loved, and the people have received his message. Now, political parties go shopping for candidates. Alhaji Asawase is here. That's something political parties do.
So somebody would have pitched to him.
They do that all the
time.
time.
They come from the place, you know.
They do that all the time, you know. And look, somewhere last year when I told Titus that I saw you make a donation to the NDC in your constituency. I know you're going to be contesting. He was like, oh, no. I said, well, I know, because people will just not do that. But of course, He's a fine gentleman. And so it was always obvious that look, he's a smart guy who just would not quit his job as general secretary and want to leave medical practice to get into politics. He would have done all his checks and recognized that he can win this in the primaries and eventually win this in the national elections. So yes, he's won it now. The dynamics in the constituency suggest that it's not a difficult hurdle when it comes to the main elections. Let's just wait and see. But I think that he's one of the few persons you'd want to say, haven't listened to over the period, haven't listened to his arguments and all of that. He'll be a great addition to Ghana's parliament. But hey, I never vote in Lambussie. The people will decide come 2024.
No, clearly I was in Lambussie when I was to vet candidate, the persons who wanted to hold executive positions in the party. You can never fail to recognize the dynamism, enthusiasm of the people of the Lambussie constituency, and the fact that they are inherently NDC supporters. Now, what has happened is that, again, there are tribal groupings in those areas, and invariably, if they fail, they're lost because one group decided that it had gone. It was enough. What he had gotten in parliament was enough, and also when they created the district, there was a problem of where to locate the district capital, and so he lost out. Now, so I think that Titus Beyuo has gotten it right in saying that, look, we need to get all the people on board, even those who have lost have to come on board so that we can win the seat and galvanize the youth, galvanize the support base, get the people to vote for the party, and then he's in parliament. Now, again, what is coming out clearly is that those MPs who lost their seats in the 2020 elections are finding it quite difficult to come back. They're not winning. So, again, it's a signal to those who have lost their seats that probably it's time to move on because it's going to be difficult for you to come back.
Listen, when we cross over now, what we're going to do is to focus on some of the major casualties that we are beginning to see. We're going to put it together. That's the interesting part. I mean, incumbent NDC MPs who have lost tonight. Let's start from Bongo, where the Winston's good friend, Edward Bauer, has lost tonight.
Really?
Yes, he's lost. Let's go there now. Our reporter who has been covering this for us is joining us with the Nicholas. Nicholas is joining us now with the details. Hello, Nicholas. Please tell us the story of what happened in Bongo.
Thanks, Evans, for having me. I'm currently in Bongo, and if you can hear the sounds of Vuvuzela, that is the supporters of lawyer Charles Bawadua, who are in a jubilant mood here in Bongo, and that's because lawyer Charles Bawadua has won, and he is the elected candidate of the NDC in the Bongo constituency. Now, he polled 535 votes. Edward Bauer, the incumbent, had 509 votes. Via Ephraim Professor, he had 75 votes. And so Charles Bawadua has been declared the elected in the Bongo constituency. That means that Edward Bauer has lost the constituency.
Wow. And have we had any... I can see on our television right now, if you're listening... Okay, if you're listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM, you may not see the visuals, but you could also watch it on our many social media platforms. Have we had any reactions from the defeated Edward Bauer or the winning Bawadua?
Yeah, so on social media, Facebook particularly, we have seen Mr. Bauer congratulate Charles Bawadua for his victory. And hoping, indicating that it is a victory for the NDC, they can work together. And speaking to Charles Bawadua himself, he says that all of them were qualified men. These are men of high repute. And so they were only having an infight, an internal fight to decide who eventually represents the party in the 2024 election. And so it settles on him, and it is his hope that the other contenders, Mr. Bauer and Professor Ephraim will work with him to ensure that in 2024 they are able to retain the seat, and former President Mahama will equally be able to get the needed endorsement. If you know the Bongo constituency very well, you will understand that it is traditionally an NDC seat. And so anyone who secures the party's parliamentary slot probably has a leg in parliament already. And so you only now need to consolidate with your campaign in 2024 to get in there. And so you can understand why sometimes the NDC elections in the constituency are sometimes very, very intense.
Thank you very much. You were surprised when you heard it?
Yes. Because I told him, you know, I'm from around that area, I'm from around Fumbisi area. And Bongo has a high number of highly qualified people who want to lead the constituency. Some of them had started making forays into the constituency, and there were a lot of activities. So I drew his attention to the fact that there were activities in his constituency, and that it could affect him in the primary.
So you saw this?
I saw this.
When you told him, what did he say?
I mean, he said, well, Senior, what do you expect? I mean, I'm a member of parliament, and so people want to unseat me, and so I'm not surprised, but I will do my best to try to defeat them. So that's why I'm surprised. I mean, there were early warning signals were there that people wanted to get him out. Because they have a lot of people who are very qualified. I can mention a lot. Bongo is not going to be a stable constituency for a very long time, in terms of the fact that somebody winning and staying there for 2-3 terms. No. Yeah. There are highly qualified people there.
But Bongo stayed for a long time.
Bongo, yes, at that time people were not interested.
Yes, Bongo stayed for a long time.
People were not interested. Bongo his name was not
Bongo from Bongo.
Bongo.
You know, those days in Parliament.
Yeah.
Those days in Parliament, when we were reporting from Parliament, you know, whenever second Deputy Speaker Michael Quay was in the seat, he always would say, the Honorable Abongo from Bongo. He liked the Honorable Abongo, but he stayed for a long time. And he also didn't contest again at a point in time, and that's how Bawa came in.
And he lost by just 26 votes.
Yeah, just like Nano Yelitha. I didn't see this coming, to be very honest with you. But again, that's the beauty of politics. That's the dynamics in politics sometimes. You know, sometimes you're very popular. I mean, I'm just speaking information that if you go to K2 North, for instance, it's been a very, very close race. On Tuesday, I got indication.
Is that where
Edem Agbana?
Yes, by 1 vote.
He won by 1 vote. I mean, I on Tuesday night, I got wind of how a lot of things were happening, and all of a sudden, the dynamics had changed. Okay, so let me get back to the Bongo constituency. Look, fine gentlemen, but like you said, sometimes when there are a lot of people in the queue, the people take a decision that, okay, we're going to try all of them. So do yours, leave, and another person would come. The beauty of our politics sometimes, many people go to parliament just because they want to become ministers of state, because majority of ministers would come from parliament. And unfortunately for Edward Bawa, he got in at the time that his party lost the presidential elections. So he's been 2-term member of parliament, but for all those 2 terms, the NDC has been in opposition. And one would have expected that, he would want to continue, stand a better chance of becoming an MP. In fact,
whilst the party is in power.
He's not trying to become a minister. There's actually a school of thought, for instance, that says that Bongo stepped down. Bongo stepped down and became Upper East Regional Minister.
Yes.
And it was actually a compensation for him to pave way for Edward Bawa, who at the time was communication specialist at the Ministry of Energy to become the candidate. So he was one that was highly tipped to, continue for a very long time. But like you've made the point, when there are a lot of people in the queue, when the feeling is that we're giving you a job, sometimes you have to do your homework very well. Sometimes, when it's obvious you're not going to win, stay away. But the reality also is that it's not that clear that you're going to lose. There are times that you only get to know you're going to lose when a campaign is started. And at that time, you cannot do anything.
No, but Innocent Husseini saw it and warned him. Maybe he tried his best, but the time was up. And he's lost tonight. And so that's another casualty tonight. We are counting the bodies dropping from Parliament for the NDC. Kwabena Donkor has fallen. Prue East, former power minister, is gone. Edward Bawa, former communication specialist at the Energy Ministry, has gone after 2 terms. ABF Husseini, we love him for his poetry and his proverbs. He's gone. Also, as we are counting this, De La Soa,
yes,
Bando has also lost the primary to Sebastian Fred there. Yeah. That's another interesting one, is it not?
It is. Look, she was contested by 3 persons, and the conversation in Kpandu at the time was that if you want De La Soa out, why don't you come together, present one candidate who then would take over from De La Soa? You have the Divine Agbeti Sebastian, then another guy wanting to unseat her. I was in Kpandu in September last year. I saw Sebastian there at the time. He has a lot of godfathers in the constituency that have been supported. This is not his first time he's contested that before. And so you realize that De Lasso had become a bit unpopular. That the conversation in Kpando at the time was that the NPP candidate is likely to be the wife of Ken Ofori-Atta's brother. Listen to this carefully, Evans. The NPP candidate, okay, is likely to be the wife of Ken Ofori-Atta's brother. So if that person is going to come in here, you must be careful. Ken
Ofori-Atta's brother?
Brother.
It comes from Kpando?
His wife.
His wife, okay.
Comes from Kpando. Who's likely to be the NPP's candidate? Now, that's a conversation in Kpando. And the conversation there is that you don't want a situation where there's a repetition of Hohoi in Kpando. So why don't you get a person? Because
John Peter Amewu's situation.
I mean, John Peter Amewu's situation, where Professor Margaret Kweku, for instance, for many people was no match for John Peter Amewu. She didn't really come from the area, a lot of issues there. But so the conversation has been that, look, De Lasso is not liked by many. She has a core base, and the feeling was that it was going to be difficult to unseat her if they still had these three persons contesting. But like we have been talking about, when it becomes obvious that you're losing grounds in a constituency, even with your core base, the party, people can read in between. So the conversation would no longer be, I support this person, but they all would come together. And I just use another constituency to do the analysis, for instance, that in the Keta constituency, where the incumbent member of parliament retained his seat, there are those who say, for instance, that Dr. Jokoto, who has been a chairman before at Nestor constituency, actually lost because the incumbent took a chunk of his votes away. Because at that point in time, they felt they were not going to allow a stranger walk in and win the elections. I think Kpando said, look, we've had enough of De Lasso. She had to move on. And whatever they were going to do to ensure that they had a new candidate, they were going to do. And a lot fell on Sebastian Day.
Another one who has fallen tonight, another incumbent is Dr. Augustine Terria, Bia West. He's also gone tonight. You know him?
I do.
Okay.
Fine gentleman, fine doctor, willing to learn. He was very active in parliamentary committees. It means that we need to look at what is happening very seriously. I mean, it means constituents are not ready to give members of parliament more time in the constituencies to be able to contribute their quota. Or there are other considerations that are determining how the constituents see their MPs and whether they want to retain them or not. And so, clearly, probably things are happening that we need to watch.
Well, it's honorable. The conversation about you need to look at things. It's a dicey situation, and I'll explain why. Because as a political party, you also want to look at the fact there's always a conversation about how about maintaining our strong members. Now, I mean, strong, persons in parliament.
But I think the point he's making, he's been there since one term.
Yes, it's the second term.
Yes, this is
the second term.
Yeah, but you see, I think he took over from Buampong also. Look, let me tell you something. Even if it's 1 term, 2 terms, people always read in between and decide based on what you promised and based on what you've done and based on what others are promising, Evans. You see, the funny thing about our politics, so let me just generalize it a little bit, is that today, if you're going to be a member of parliament, you're not going to tell the people that vote for me so that I go and enact good laws for you. Is that how you campaign?
No.
You don't campaign like that. And that's the problem. Once you don't campaign that you have the wherewithal to go and debate and go and advocate on behalf of the constituency, I am sorry. You are going to make promises as a development agent. And you may not be able to deliver.
But Winston, these particular elections have other considerations influencing the outcome of the elections. I mean, there is a general feeling that NDC is going to win the election in 2024. And we all have believed that John Mahama will be the president. So many people entered the race because they see opportunities ahead.
Yes.
And that was why the race was quite keen. And people are losing out because a lot of people invested some resources, good resources, in getting themselves elected to the parliament. Just because they are taking the risk that the NDC will win, a majority of the ministers will come from parliament, and so if you are in parliament, you are already more than a percentage point there into becoming a minister. And so probably that accounts for the reason why some good MPs are losing their seats.
Yeah, but you see, if many are taking the risk, there are many who are also being maintained.
Yeah.
And if we go to South...
At a cost.
Of course, that's how you've made our politics today. That's how you've made our politics. If we got to go to South Tongue Evans, I think we should go there. You know that the incumbent is also lost? Kwabena Donkor has lost.
Yes, Welby. Yeah.
Oh, he's also lost.
He's lost to Maxwell Lokutor. Okay. And Maxwell Lokutor, maybe Pesa White could learn from that. Maybe his motivation had been losing to Kwabena Mensah for a very long time. Then all of a sudden, he emerges victorious today. Now, there's somebody who's always been there. Consistently lost to this man. He had hoped that he was always going to get there, but he eventually comes in and wins. I think that, look, whatever it is, once our politics is the way it is, you'd have fine gentlemen, whether it's 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, losing parliamentary primaries. Because in most of the instances, and that's why, let me make this point. In a lot of the constituencies, Evans, the incumbents strike a deal, okay? Tell, I want to do 2 and walk away.
Especially in the Volta region, your strongholds. People come and go.
Mensah has been there 3 times.
Who?
Woyome
has been there
4 times. 4 times.
Since 2009.
So probably it's not about a deal.
Not in this case. I'm talking about, I mean, on general, I mean, like the BRS that we're talking about. But for Woyome, he's been there since 2009.
So I think it's fatigue.
It's fatigue.
People are just tired of him. Yeah. So he lost with Maxwell Lokutor there in South Town. Another casualty tonight. So we are counting a lot more. So in my last count, as we go through it, this list will increase. We are talking about Kwabena Donkor, Edward Bauer, ABA Fuseni, De La Soa, Dr. Augustine Teria of Bia. I've lost as well. Kwabena Woyome have also lost tonight. And the list keeps growing. We will go in and get you more on the results across the country. We're waiting for the story in Asawase to tell you also. Incumbent for Kintampo North constituency, Honorable Joseph Kuma, has won, not lost. He's won. Voting is still ongoing in the Sunyani East constituency. We just a little over 1,300 delegates having cast their votes out of the expected 2,000. So they are still voting happening. And most of these cases, it's because materials arrived there pretty late as well. From what I'm reading, Navrogo Central MP Samsing Tangoba Tenapaga have also lost. From what I'm reading, he's also another incumbent who is also dropped tonight. We'll try and get that detail. So that's another incumbent.
First MP.
Yes. So in Navrogo. His constituents and executives said he was going to lose because they were finding it difficult accessing him, and that they voted him because they didn't want the lady to be an MP,
the Tangoba Abayage
to be MP because she had fought Kofi Adda. So
yes. Look, let me be very honest with you, and may he so rest in peace. My very, very good friend Kofi Adda. He, in June when we spoke to him at the time, in 2020, said, oh, the first half is over, but the football match is not over yet. We're going to go into the main election. We will see. In fact, there are many who felt that Kofi Adda was going to come back again in 2024, and he would have won easily because he's so much loved in
Navrogo, yeah.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, so for the NDC candidate, he was just a beneficiary of an internal NPP fight. And Kofi Adda was voted against because also within the constituency, the feeling was that he was fighting his executives. If you come in there, you don't have to do similar things. Okay, so once the people told him he was going to lose, I think that this is no news really. It's something that he knew he was going to lose.
Yeah.
So
let's go to the Sunyani East constituency now, where Precious Semevo is standing by. Hello, Precious. Hello, Precious. Okay, we'll get Precious on to join us very shortly. Hello, Precious.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, Precious, what's the story in Sunyani East tonight?
Well, Sunyani East, as I speak to you, voting is ongoing. A lot of people here, the queue is that long, even as at now. Now, the exercise, as announced, was to start at 7 a.m., but it delayed for over 2 hours, so it started after 9 a.m. But what significantly has caused the delay is the biometric verification. That has been the delay of people going through the process. And it's been that frustrating and difficult for lots of the delegates here. 2,295 of them are expected to cast their votes today. So what organizers eventually decided to do that they will attend to those who are coming from far away so that they will start from far and then come close to Sunyani. The last time I checked, about 20 or so minutes ago here, only just about 1,227 people had cast their vote, let's say about 20 minutes ago. And we are expecting 2,295 people to cast their vote. So it gives you an idea of how deep we have to stay here in the night for the protest to complete both presidential and then parliamentary. That aside, there hasn't been any chaotic situation, no disturbances. People are frustrated, but they are trying to follow the protest as it has been outlined by party executives. Security is quite tight here to ensure that everything goes on as planned.
Thank you very much, and we'll keep a close eye on that. And if you're just joining us here, this is our continued coverage of the NDC parliamentary and presidential primaries. As far as the presidential primary is concerned, I mean, it's a done deal, done and dusted. We're just waiting for the percentage, and we're expecting it to be way above 95%, and so there's no contest there. It is the parliamentary that has been interesting, throwing up a lot of key names dropping out of the race that we are beginning to analyze there. I am still waiting to hear from the Asawase, but we also the Volta region. There are a lot of interesting contests there. Have we heard anything from Roxy Nelson, the Femekos constituency? Because that's one of the areas that we are watching. Yes, it appears to be a very keen contest there as well.
Yes, it does. It does appear to be a very keen contest. I've been monitoring. The last time I checked, I was told that still a tight race. We're waiting for the results. So yes, we're monitoring, and once the results are ready. But we know that Ketu North looks like Adam Agbana won by a vote. One vote.
In Ketu North.
Yes, in Ketu North.
So defeating the incumbent.
No, the incumbent didn't contest again. James Klucha Aveji.
Oh, that's why Aveji has pulled out. So that's that. Okay, everybody wanted to take that seat.
Yeah, so I was telling you that as at last week or two, it was more like, Adam was going to sail through. But on Tuesday night, when I normally would have some of my political discussions, in the course of the political discussions, we realized that, look, it was going to be actually a 5-horse race, not just 1 or 2 horse race, 5. Because at that time, others had come in. And again, I mean, what Honorable was talking about, people are pumping in lots of resources in this election. And so if you're not well resourced, man, go and sleep. You may not just win the election. And that's what happened in there. But congratulations to the young man. He's done very well.
Okay, so that's a story there. And we are waiting. We'll go to Saudai shortly and get our correspondent to join us, where Roxy Nelson, the FMFO, is holding on, trying to win that seat. Fosu Prosper is giving him a good run for his money there. We'll get our correspondent who's been there for us, Gali David, to join us, to tell us a story of what is happening in Saudai, one of those NDC strongholds where the fight has been pretty keen. And if there's a lot of more results coming through, I'll go through for you pretty shortly. But let's switch a bit. Let's talk about the presidential for a second. Inusa, I haven't heard your reaction yet. I will come to the parliamentary as we wait for the other results to come in. To the drama that has unfolded over the last few days. Kwabena Donkor jumping out of the race last night, last minute. I'm pretty sure you watched all this unfold until the last minute when he pulled out, going into this morning. What has been your reaction to all that?
Well, so what Kwabena Donkor did yesterday was something that didn't come to me as a surprise at all. Because if you are a political watcher, you've been watching the approval ratings of John Dramani Mahama in the NDC, you will be left with no doubt that in the 3 elections that he has contested, the primaries, including this one, he's always clocked more than 95%.
Yeah.
And so he's so popular in the NDC. I mean, it would take someone equally popular to destabilize him. And I don't see that in Kwabena Donkor. Neither do I see that in Kojo Bonsu.
But it really has never been about anybody going to win against John Mahama.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
It has always been about how many votes.
So it leads you to ask yourself, so why did he enter the race?
He wanted to make a point.
A point of what?
If he could possibly even get 20% of the vote, that's
to
massive.
do what?
to prove a point that John Mahama is not as
no, but it's terribly miscalculated. I was part of John Mahama's campaign in the Northern region. When we started, we had delegates saying, well, we're going to vote you. We'll vote you massively. Then getting to the end, the language changed. We're going to endorse you.
I see. But you see, Honorable Minister Hussaini, this is why I disagree with you. I mean, look, sometimes you don't contest election because you want to win.
Really?
Like, oh, yes.
It's not all the time.
Where you get money to spend. Oh. You have money to spend. So then give the money to the person who wants to win.
Hold on. Are you suggesting, for instance,
yes,
that Nuruddin Idrisu, who contested John Mahama the last time, knew he was going to win the election?
So why did he contest?
Don't you know him now? You know him.
So you have to invest so much resources to become popular.
But that's
really, it is an investment.
I like how you put it. You have to invest. That's the investment.
It's an investment.
That's the investment. Today, we're discussing Kojo Bonsu all over the country.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about him. So it's not always the case that you want to win the election and that's why you're contesting. I mean, when it comes
to... become a
significant
player.
Well, in what?
When it comes to...
Just look at all those who contested Mahama in the last primary.
Yeah.
Today, some of them have positions in his campaign.
Joshua
Labi came second. You think Joshua Labi would have been in this campaign as a campaign manager if he had not come second the last time?
But Joshua Labi was regional minister of the Northern region for some time during the Rawlings era.
Yes.
I mean, he's played a very important part in NDC's
future. He had less than 5,000 votes. We had less than 4,000 votes. He had 3,000 and something votes. The point I'm trying to make is this. In elections, like the presidential elections.
Winston, you really think that these people enter the race not intending to win?
People know they're not going to win elections and they go. Look, I'll tell you this. I mean, I was going to tell you, but I'll tell you this.
Yes.
There are people I know who have come to me to say, I want to be a member of parliament. And I've told them, but you know you're not going to win the elections. All right?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, I want to make a case. It's a statement thing. I'll give you a typical example. In the last NPP...
Okay, gentlemen, forgive me. There's some development at Asawase you can see on your screens now. There is some confusion. I don't know what's happening, but we have our reporter there who will give us a context of the...
Who's that?
Do we have Nanaya Aljuma on? Let's get Nanaya Aljuma to give us a clarity on what we are seeing on the street. If you're listening to us on radio, what we are watching now live on the Joy News channel from Asawase, where voting has been ongoing even now because of the late arrival material. Police are having a tough time trying to control a rowdy crowd. There appears to be a few individuals around which the confusion is revolving. We don't know what has triggered this, but there's some confusion there. Police officers are trying to get this under control. There's been pushing and shoving. Right now, people have crossed the cordon into the area where they were not supposed to be, and the police are having a tough time trying to bring it to the cordon. This is a voting area that has been cordoned off. When we went there the last time, it was orderly. People were standing behind the cordon, and people were voting orderly. And now we have this somebody's actually punching somebody's face here. And the police officers themselves are having a tough time dealing with this situation. This is unfolding in real time, and nobody knows what's happening. This is going to hold up the voting even more.
Some confusion here at Asawase. It is unclear the cause of the confusion, but I can... Mubarak, who is contesting Muntaka Mubarak for the Asawase seat, is in the middle of these disturbances. From the little information that we've been able to gather, we understand that Mubarak walked in with a lady who he wanted her to cast the ballot, but it's being resisted by Muntaka Mubarak's camp. So it looks like both camps are in disagreement. Masawood Mubarak is in the middle of the tussle that is happening here. It's unclear the reason behind this fight, but the police is on the ground, heavy security presence here to restrain whatever is happening here. So the police is on the ground, they are doing their work. I can see more policemen coming in here, protecting the ballot boxes that we already have on the ground. So it's a disagreement between the supporters of Honorable Muntaka and that of Masaud Mubarak himself in the middle of this tussle. Police on the ground. It's very difficult to get the people in the center of this to talk to, for them to explain exactly the reason for or the cause of whatever we are seeing here. But the police are still around trying to ensure that there is calm. So getting to the end of this election, there have been a lot of tension. Getting to the end of the election itself. So now it looks like the police is now on top of the issues. Gradually, they are getting people to leave the perimeter where we have the EC. The police are trying to sack all the supporters of both camps from the perimeter. So it's actually happening at the desk where we have the Electoral Commission seated. So before we got here, I saw Masaud walk in with a lady in white. The lady had a veil over her head, and they walked straight to the EC's table. Even when the election had closed at one end or at one of the polling stations. So now we have Muntaka Mubarak's supporters hooting at Masaud Mubarak and his supporters, and as well as his security men. Now calm has been restored to the area. Now they've taken the whole issue outside the perimeter where the election itself is being held. Now the police have been able to calm tempers, especially under the shelter where the election itself is being held. So I can see some shoving over there. Some heavily built men and some supporters of Muntaka shoving at each other. We are trying to get the footage from a distance behind the police who have created a barricade here. So far, the whole of the election process has ended in the Asawase constituency. It has ended in the Asawase constituency. We are waiting for the EC to shut down the polling stations and for the counting to begin. That is when we had this whole issue starting up here. This was expected. It was expected that the Asawase constituency will have a very heated up election here, and this comes to no one as a surprise. Even the police service was ready for it. They brought a lot of men in here in the Asawase constituency to ensure that no matter what the situation is, they are able to calm tempers here at the Asawase constituency. Earlier, when Masaud Mubarak came in, he made it clear to the media that he has issues with the register, but the EC was ready to ensure that they settle all the issues that he had with the register. So, to some extent, we are surprised seeing this.
Has now been restored. The voting area has now been cleared. Voting is ended in Asawase. The police have done a great job now, moving everybody on behind the barricades.
But he was unable to cast his ballot, and according to him, when we interviewed him earlier, he said that there are issues with the register, and he's speaking with the EC to ensure that these issues are resolved. So he came back immediately after the ballot or the voting had closed here in the Asawase constituency to cast his ballot, and Muntaka's supporters and others would not allow that. He came with one lady. It is unclear if he wanted to vote with the lady as well, but the supporters of Muntaka here resisted that. The police had to come in to calm nerves here. As you can see, the police have now been able to secure the whole of the area. You can see there are barricades all over. Policemen place advantage points to ensure that no supporter or no delegates get access into the inner perimeter where the election itself or the ballot itself will be counted. So calm has been restored at the Asawase constituency.
There. And so now that voting has ended, calm has returned, and this was resolved very quickly. The police did a great job, and they've really deployed in their numbers. You can see they've really pushed them really away from the voting center, and the police are very well armed. See, they've moved them beyond the barricades, and we can now expect the counting to start. They've done a great job. When the police do a great job, we should applaud them. Because on the pictures we were seeing, they could have turned into something nasty very, very quick. People were punching each other, pushing. Within a few minutes, they've managed to take control, cordon off. I think they've called in reinforcement because now we have more armed police officers now arriving at the scene as I'm watching this, trying to take control. This is brilliant. But this is what we expected in Asawase.
Well, I mean, when I was...
this is what we expected
when I was driving, when I was walking, when I was limping into the office, somebody said, no elections are they're saying elections. And I was like, oh, but there's some confusion here and that. Ningo-Prampram, we've had a few in Asawase. Well, I mean, I think I'm happy that the police has been able to calm this. But look, let me just say this, and I know Masaud Mubarak. I've known him for about 15 years. Yes, 15 years. Look, if elections end, you don't go back wanting to vote.
Yes.
You don't do that.
Fundamentally wrong.
If elections are over, don't go back.
But that also says one thing.
Yeah.
He knows the outcome already, and it is not in his favor. So now try and do something desperate at the very final minute.
Clearly, bringing somebody to come and cast his or her vote after the elections have closed is a sign of desperation.
Desperation, yes.
Yeah, so clearly,
and look,
he ought not to have done that.
Based on what Nanaya Jumai told us, I mean, if elections are over, they're over.
Yeah.
Don't go there trying to mar the process. Because, well, I mean, I don't know what the results are. They're in there. I'm sure when the sorting is done, whichever team starts the jubilation will actually tell you who's going to win or who's not going to win. But the point for me is that don't do that.
Don't do that, yeah.
Because you see, when you do that and you're unsuccessful in your bid, it becomes difficult for you being, pulled along the party with a campaign.
But already the Asawase campaign going in has been very acrimonious. Remember that Muntaka himself has been in a situation where the constituency executives have been pitched against him family. Allegations of murder have been made against him. I mean, he had gone to court. So this has been very, very dirty, extremely dirty. And then in the midst of all that, he then gets removed as the minority chief whip. And then the conspiracy, the siege mentality then begins to be entrenched. That some forces are working to remove him and unseat him, right? And these forces may be behind Mubarak.
Yeah.
So this was always setting up to be a very explosive.
Yeah, so Masouda has been popping up every now and then in each elections. I know Tanko, that's Tanko's nephew. He's on one or two occasions prevailed on him not to contest.
That's Abdurrauf Tanko.
Yes, Abdurrauf Tanko, the former MP for Yagabakobore. And so he's been quite popular and quite wanting to unseat Muntaka for a very long time. Now, matters didn't help when Muntaka had problems with his executives, and when he refused to shake hands with the newly elected chairman.
Exactly.
And so clearly, I mean, we have always known that Asawase, it took the chairman of the party to go to Kumasi to try to resolve their differences. So we have always known that these elections, these primaries, will be a primaries to watch. We have always known that. and clearly it's a hotspot, and that has been demonstrated by what we are
just seeing. Yeah. And we are waiting. Okay, there's an interview now that Asawase. Okay, we'll go there when we can have. This is in the local language for our Dome partners. Once we get that clarified in English, we'll get that for you. But we're staying with the theme. We're talking about the presidential primaries. Let's end that. Because I'm still interested in Inuse's assessment of this, because he is an NDC through and through, and he's been following this. You were analyzing that Dr. Kwabena Donkor miscalculated in the way he approached this, and the son may have suffered as a result of that. But also possibly he's ended any political future. He has ended that of his son as well. He's pulled out, but even in pulling out, he says he only pulled out because the process was so flawed, he couldn't be drinking from a poison calabash. So that's where we stand tonight. And you were making the point that Winston and I were disagreeing with you about that. He knew he was going to lose. So what's the point?
Well,
he had an end game. He had an end game, and we thought possibly he needed some form of reputational enhancement, even as a candidate, which many people who are contested, knowing they'll lose, have banged their hopes on.
Well, so it's always good to speak to people like you. I mean, as a politician, I always think that when you are going to elections, you go in to win. Because it requires a lot of time and resources, a lot of sacrifice. Right. I mean, so when you want to contest an election, you must be prepared to win. And so if you know that you cannot win an election, don't go in the first place.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. A lot of politicians have spoken to me and have consulted me on a lot of things, including elections, because of what we do. And Evans, I think some have consulted you too.
Yeah, of course, of course.
A lot of them. Look, and there are a lot of them that have told me, Charlie, this one, I know I don't go win, but the next one will be better. So, I mean, it's
a game that people go in. I didn't approach elections that way. Yeah. I went into elections because I thought
because you want to win. Yeah, but so for instance, and it's the reason I probably think the son's future is not over. Dofor's son's future is not over yet.
It will require some re-engineering.
It will, but he can do that. Look, a few things may not have worked for him this time, and so I mean, it's like we started by saying we didn't expect the woman to win. I'm sure by Monday, Evans, when we do the post-mortem, I'm going to find out what really happened in Sechafran Plains. I'm going to understand the dynamics in that constituency and dynamics on the day.
So, Winston, you didn't expect that Hajia woman to win?
No, not at all.
You would not have expected her to win. From her name, you can see that she comes from a minority ethnic group within that place.
Yes.
Now, but Hajia knew that her chances had improved when she saw Kwabena Donkor Jr. fighting his uncle.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, clearly, if you are a political strategist, you will want to maximize whatever little you can get.
But also, the moment Kwabena Donkor did what he did, and today when we went to the constituency, the people said he had been a distraction of the process.
Kwabena Donkor Senior is a different ballgame.
That's what I'm trying to make. I still insist that what we have seen tonight is a punishment for Kwabena Donkor Senior. His sins being visited upon his son and his brother.
To the extent that Kwabena Donkor Senior was not able to prevail on his son, Kwabena Donkor Jr., not to contest his uncle, might be the visitation of the sin.
Well,
he may have actually encouraged him.
He might be the sin.
Yeah.
Okay? And that sin will perpetually divide their family.
Look,
now, so what I'm saying is for the presidential elections, I mean, again, don't you see that there has been a fundamental misunderstanding of the electoral processes within the NDC by the Donkor team. Now, apart from this, even when we heard that Masawudu had issues with the electoral register, this is the same electoral register that is being used all over the country in the constituencies. Now, we are receiving results and we are hearing that some MPs have lost. Bawa has lost, my good friend. I was there with him at the Ministry of Energy.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. He was.
When you were deputy minister.
Deputy minister. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I know him so well. And that's why I was able to pass on that information
to him. Okay,
to try to up his game because people were going